What if the most attractive person in the room isn't the one who speaks the most, but the one who doesn't need to? What if real power doesn't come from dominating a conversation, but from mastering yourself so deeply that silence speaks louder than words? The ancient Stoics understood something we've forgotten. That presence, true presence, is forged in the furnace of self-discipline. That quiet strength outlasts noisy charm. And that you don't have to raise your voice when your life already speaks for you. In this journey with Daily Stoic, you're about to discover 12 socially attractive habits grounded in Stoic wisdom that will transform the way people perceive you without you ever needing to say a word. These are not shallow tactics. These are deep internal shifts, habits that radiate calm, confidence, clarity, the kind of energy that others feel before you even enter the room. Some of them may surprise you, others will challenge you, but each one has the power to change not just how others respond to you, but how you see yourself. And stay with me until the very end, because the final habit, number 1, is the rarest, the hardest to embody, and the most transformative of all. Now let's begin, but first, answer this in the comments. What does silent strength mean to you? Drop your answer below. One phrase, one truth. Habit 12. Cultivate stillness before you speak. In a world drowning in noise, the individual who pauses before they speak radiates an uncommon strength. This is not about silence as a performance or manipulation. It is about the deeply Stoic practice of cultivating interior calm, of allowing thought to precede impulse and principle to guide speech. The ancient Stoics understood that your words are not just sounds, they are signals of your inner condition. Speaking too quickly often betrays emotional reactivity. Speaking too much often signals insecurity. But speaking with measured calm, after reflection, not before, displays mastery. Seneca once wrote, "No man was ever wise by chance." Wisdom, as the Stoics taught, is a discipline, and one of its clearest signs is restraint in speech. A person who doesn't rush to respond commands more attention than the one who dominates the room. When you pause, when you take that breath before responding, others lean in. They listen more closely, not because you're louder, but because you are grounded. Stillness before speaking requires internal clarity. It asks you to observe your own mind before you act. It invites you to ask, is this necessary? Is this virtuous? Is this worth saying at all? Most people speak to prove something, but the Stoic speaks only to serve something higher than ego, truth, reason, and usefulness. In practical terms, cultivating this habit might look like taking a breath before answering a question, letting a moment of silence pass after someone finishes speaking, resisting the urge to correct, interrupt, or impress. Instead, listening, reflecting, responding with calm, concise thoughtfulness. There is a magnetic quality to someone who listens deeply and speaks rarely, but meaningfully. It's the kind of presence that doesn't chase approval, because it is rooted in principle. When you are selective with your words, people start to value them more. You become known not for how much you talk, but for the weight of what you say. In social dynamics, especially those driven by ego, the quietly composed individual stands out. They radiate calm in situations where others are reactive. They maintain perspective when others lose control. And in doing so, they gain a reputation not just for confidence, but for wisdom. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Simple, but demanding. To live this way is to place virtue above vanity, to honor speech as a reflection of the soul. When you learn to speak less, but with more truth, you build trust. You create space for others, you reduce unnecessary conflict, and you embody the Stoic ideal: strength without aggression, power without performance. So, begin with this today. In your next conversation, pause, Let your breath be your guide. Let stillness come first. Then speak, only if your words are needed, honest, and aligned with your deeper self. This is the quiet strength of the Stoic. This is how you become silently attractive. Now, we move on to habit 11. Habit 11, maintain eye contact without needing to dominate. There's something powerful in the gaze of a person who sees, but doesn't seek approval. Someone who looks you in the eye, not to intimidate, not to impress, but simply because they are fully present. In the Stoic tradition, presence is a virtue. It's not theatrical, it's not loud, it's not used as a weapon. It's quiet, grounded, and intentional, and nothing reveals presence more immediately than the way you hold someone's gaze. The world is full of people who either avoid eye contact out of insecurity or force it out of ego. The Stoic finds the middle ground, a steady, calm, respectful gaze, not one that demands attention, but one that gives it. When you maintain gentle, unwavering eye contact, you are saying, "I am here, I am listening. I do not fear being seen, and I do not need to overpower you to exist." Epictetus reminded his students constantly, "We are not disturbed by things, but by our judgments about things." The same applies to people. We are not disturbed by others unless we've judged them as threats or ourselves as inferior. The Stoic gaze is free of both judgments. It doesn't challenge, it doesn't shrink, it simply is. People often confuse attraction with performance. But true, silent attraction flows from a person who is deeply okay with themselves. That self-possession is most visible in their eyes, because the eyes don't lie. They show whether you're anxious, reactive, proud, fearful, fake, or steady. To train this habit, practice mindful attention. When speaking to someone, resist the urge to look away when you're thinking. Resist the urge to overcompensate by staring. Simply hold your gaze softly, like you're observing a sunrise. Nothing to prove, nothing to fear. It may feel vulnerable at first, and that's good, because the Stoic doesn't run from discomfort. The Stoic walks into it, breathing with control, anchored in values. Eye contact is a form of mental exposure, but it's also a signal of mastery. In leadership, this habit builds trust. In relationships, it deepens connection. In daily life, it communicates that rare blend of confidence and humility. You don't need to dominate the room with your words. Your gaze says enough. "I am unshaken." Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig." Eye contact is a way of sharing that inner fountain silently. Practice it without arrogance, without performance, just stillness, attention, and the courage to meet others where they are, without flinching. This is the habit of the quietly powerful. The Stoic doesn't need to look through people, only into them, and only when it matters. And that is how you attract silently. Now let's move on to habit 10. Habit 10, master your posture. Let your body speak calm. Before you say a word, your posture has already told the world who you are. Stoicism teaches us that character is revealed not only in action, but in presence, and your physical posture is one of the most immediate expressions of that presence. The way you stand, sit, walk, and carry yourself sends a message about what's happening inside. And those who are silently attractive understand this. Their body speaks before their voice does. A Stoic doesn't slouch under the weight of circumstance. A Stoic doesn't puff their chest to fake strength. They stand upright, not with arrogance but with dignity, because the body, like the mind, must be trained. Epictetus put it bluntly, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. If you want to be respected, let your body reflect self-respect. If you want to lead, let your body embody quiet authority. Not forced, not exaggerated, just steady." Imagine someone who walks into a room slowly, shoulders back, chin level, not trying to attract attention, but clearly not avoiding it either. That balance, that centeredness is felt. You trust that person more. You want to know who they are. That's posture rooted in principle, not ego. This doesn't mean stiff robotic movements. On the contrary, true Stoic posture is relaxed, but alert, fluid, but grounded. You are not trying to be a statue. You are trying to be present. And presence comes from the spine, the breath, and the eyes, all working together. Breath deeply influences posture. Shallow breath creates tightness, anxiety, slouching. Deep, controlled breath expands the chest, relaxes the shoulders, anchors the mind. So much of your silent power begins in how you breathe, and that shapes how you hold yourself. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The strength is visible in someone whose posture is unaffected by the chaos around them. They don't shrink when criticized. They don't inflate when praised. They simply remain upright, physically and mentally. People are drawn to this kind of physical self-control because it's rare, because it feels safe, and because it signals discipline, which is the foundation of respect. To build this habit, start small. Notice how you sit when alone. Do you collapse into the chair or hold a gentle verticality? When you walk, are your steps fast and reactive or slow and intentional? When you speak, is your chest open or caved in? These aren't cosmetic questions. They are philosophical. Your posture reflects your philosophy. A slouched body tells the world you've surrendered to life. An upright body tells the world you are awake to it. And over time, as you train this habit, something interesting happens. Your posture begins to affect your mind. You start to feel more stable, more grounded, more able to handle life without flinching, without pretending. This is how you become silently attractive. You don't speak your worth, you stand it. Now let's continue with Habit 9. Habit 9, speak less, say more. In a culture obsessed with attention, silence is a form of rebellion. And in that silence, if used with precision, lies immense strength. The Stoics believed that speech should be measured, purposeful, and brief. Not because words lack value, but because overusing them weakens their impact. The more you say, the less people hear. The more you talk, the more likely you are to betray your principles. Epictetus warned his students, "Let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary and in few words." This wasn't a call for shyness. It was a call for intentionality. To speak less doesn't mean to be passive. It means to be selective. You observe more, you listen longer. You weigh your words not by how clever they sound, but by whether they serve a purpose. In social settings, this creates an aura. You're not the loudest voice, but when you do speak, others pay attention, because they've learned that your words are not thrown out carelessly. They come from somewhere deeper, a calm, practiced mind. Being silent is easy. Being silent with meaning is rare. When you embody this, you begin to operate from a position of strength. You're not rushed. You're not desperate to be understood. You don't need to interrupt to feel important. You allow space for others to speak. And in doing so, you earn their respect. It's also strategic. People reveal who they are when you let them talk. And the more you listen, the more you learn. Not just about others, but about how the world moves. The Stoic is always studying, always learning, always choosing when to act and when to remain still. This is not about withdrawing from life. It's about mastering your expression. When your words are few but grounded in clarity, they carry real weight. They land. They echo. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, constantly reminded himself to speak plainly, without embellishment. He didn't want to impress. He wanted to align with truth. And that's the Stoic ideal, language that is clean, direct, free from ego. To build this habit, begin today by practicing restraint. Before speaking, ask, is this useful? Is it kind? Is it necessary? If it's not, let the moment pass. You'll notice something surprising. Your value won't decrease in silence, it will grow. People remember the person who speaks only when it matters, who isn't afraid of silence, who doesn't perform to be liked but lives to be aligned. This is how you attract without noise. You don't say much, but what you say matters. Now we continue with habit 8. Habit 8, become emotionally unmoved by praise or criticism. Most people are easy to manipulate. Just praise them and they soften. Criticize them and they collapse. But the Stoic walks another path, the path of inner independence. To be silently attractive, you must develop emotional sovereignty. That means your self-worth is no longer rented out to other people's opinions. You are not inflated by compliments, nor deflated by disapproval. You remain centered, unshaken. Marcus Aurelius, who faced both flattery and hatred daily, wrote to himself, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." This is not coldness, it is clarity, a recognition that praise and criticism are both external and therefore outside your control. What is in your control? Your response, your reason. Your choice to let external noise pass through you like wind through a tree. Still standing, still grounded. In social life, this habit is magnetic. People sense it immediately. This is someone who cannot be emotionally bought or threatened. They are present, kind, respectful, but untouchable. Not because they're distant, because they are anchored. When someone praises you, say thank you, but don't feed on it. When someone criticizes you, consider if there's truth in it. If there is, use it. If not, let it dissolve. Either way, you stay calm. You keep walking. This is emotional minimalism. You carry only what serves your path. No extra weight. Epictetus taught his students to rehearse the insults they might receive. So when they came, they'd be ready. Not angry, not reactive, just prepared. This isn't negativity, it's preparation for reality, because in life you will be misunderstood, you will be judged unfairly, and you will also be praised more than you deserve. The Stoic knows that neither should define them. To build this habit, observe your reactions. When someone compliments you, notice how much you crave more. When someone critiques you, notice how fast your ego wants to defend. Then, breathe. Step back. Ask yourself, is my worth really up for debate? Over time, this internal buffer grows. You stop being tossed by the emotional weather of others. You begin to project calm, a subtle power, a presence that says, I see you, I hear you, but I remain as I am. And people feel it. They don't know why, but they're drawn to you because you don't need them. And that makes your energy pure. This is the essence of silent attraction. You're not controlled by opinions, you're guided by principles. Let's continue now with habit 7. Habit 7, protect your time like your soul depends on it. There is nothing more silently attractive than a person who is unavailable to nonsense, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. The Stoics believed that time was one of the few things truly ours. Everything else, money, reputation, relationships, can be taken away. But your time, that is your life itself. To waste it is to disrespect your own existence. Seneca warned, people are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. He meant this literally. If someone tried to steal your phone, you'd react instantly. But how many times have you allowed people to steal your focus, your attention, your energy without resistance? To be silently attractive, you must become fiercely selective with your time. Not by isolating yourself, but by living intentionally. You choose where you go. You choose who gets your attention. And more importantly, you choose who doesn't. This habit sends a powerful message. My life has direction. My hours have meaning. I don't float. I walk with purpose. In practice, this means learning to say no. without guilt, without explanation. It means blocking out distractions. It means recognizing that your time is the soil from which everything meaningful grows. If you let weeds take over, don't be surprised when nothing strong emerges, when others see that you're not endlessly available, that you're not addicted to notifications, gossip, or distractions. They begin to respect you more. Not because you told them to, but because they feel your priorities. This also makes you more mysterious, more grounded. When you're always around, always accessible, always ready to react, you dilute your value. But when you disappear to build, to reflect, to grow, you return with presence. The Stoic understands that to guard their time is to guard their soul. They structure their day not around convenience, but around character. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They use the moment they have, fully. To build this habit, start tracking how you spend your hours. Where do you lose time? Who drains your energy? Which habits keep you stuck in the noise? And then, without drama, begin to remove them. Replace distraction with depth. Replace urgency with clarity. Replace passivity with action. Your time is your signature. How you spend it reveals who you are and who you're becoming. The silently attractive Stoic doesn't beg for attention. They give theirs carefully, and in doing so, they become rare. Now let's move forward to Habit 6. Habit 6. Own your space without needing to take anyone else's. There's a rare kind of presence that doesn't demand the room, yet somehow fills it. It doesn't compete, doesn't posture, doesn't overpower. It simply is. And that is what the Stoics practiced, and what silently attractive people embody. Owning your space isn't about dominance. It's about self-possession. You are not trying to make yourself bigger than others. You're simply refusing to make yourself smaller. You walk into a room not to prove anything, but to be who you are, fully. The Stoic walks with integrity, not arrogance. They understand that true power isn't taken. It's expressed through calm, confident being. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule through fear, but through example. His strength was quiet, his authority internal. That's the model. In practical terms, owning your space means being comfortable in your body, in your thoughts, in your silence. It's standing tall even when others try to ignore you. It's not fidgeting, over-explaining, apologizing for your existence. It's speaking when you have something to say, and being at peace when you don't. Most people walk through life shrinking, making themselves less visible so they won't be judged, or overcompensating to be liked. But the Stoic stands firm because their value is internal. They don't need to grab space. They are space. This is especially powerful in group settings. Watch the difference between someone who anxiously needs validation and someone who sits with calm, open posture, makes steady eye contact, speaks with thought, and listens without rushing. The latter doesn't seek attention, but draws it effortlessly. Why? Because we are drawn to those who seem whole, who are not chasing approval or control, who occupy space as if they belong, not because anyone gave them permission, but because they've given it to themselves. Seneca reminded us that a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Owning your space doesn't mean you've never faced doubt. It means you've faced it and remained. To cultivate this habit, start by observing where you shrink. Do you minimize your opinions, your presence, your ideas? And when you do, ask yourself why. Whose approval am I waiting for? Then shift. Straighten your posture. Breathe deeply. Let your energy settle. Speak clearly. Take up physical and emotional space without shame. You don't have to prove you belong. You belong because you exist, and you are aligned with virtue. That's all the justification you need. This is the quiet power that commands respect. Not because it demands it, but because it embodies it. Now let's continue with Habit 5. Habit 5. Be unpredictable in your discipline, not your emotions. Most people are emotionally predictable. You praise them, they smile. You ignore them, they chase. You insult them, they react. But the Stoic reverses this. Their emotions are stable. Their discipline is where the surprise lies. In a world of emotional volatility, emotional constancy is rare and therefore attractive. The Stoic trains themselves to respond, not react, to choose clarity over impulse, to remain internally ordered even when the external world is chaotic. Epictetus taught that if someone can make you angry, they are your master. Why? Because they control your emotional state, and the silently attractive person cannot be controlled, not because they resist everything, but because they govern themselves first. This is not about being cold or distant. It's about being grounded. When someone disrespects you, you don't need to explode or defend. You assess, you decide, and then you act in a way that aligns with your principles, not with your ego. On the other hand, your discipline should be the thing people don't expect. You wake up early when others sleep in. You train when others quit. You practice when no one's watching. That's where your intensity lives. Not in your emotions, but in your standards. This creates a rare contrast. You are calm when others are reactive, but you are relentless when others are passive. This combination is magnetic, composed on the outside, fire on the inside. In relationships, in work, in conflict, this habit sets you apart. Because people trust those who are emotionally consistent, and they respect those who are quietly intense in their effort. You don't talk about how hard you work. Your results speak. You don't dramatize your challenges. You carry them. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Let your actions surprise people, not your temper. To develop this habit, start by noticing your triggers. What throws you off emotionally? Who do you allow to dictate your mood? Then begin the Stoic practice of pause. Pause before reacting. Pause before responding. In that space, you regain power. Simultaneously intensify your self-discipline. Do more than you promised yourself. Show up when it's hard. Hold yourself to higher standards, not for approval, but for alignment. Over time, this makes you emotionally bulletproof and behaviorally impressive. People won't know what drives you, but they'll feel it. That mystery, rooted in virtue, is the essence of silent attraction. Let others be loud with their emotions. You be loud with your consistency. Habit 4, walk away without noise. And without turning back, one of the most quietly powerful acts you can perform is this: walking away. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in clarity. The Stoic doesn't beg to be understood. They don't force connections. They don't plead for closure. When a situation no longer aligns with reason, virtue, or inner peace, they walk calmly, silently, with dignity. This habit is rooted in one of the most fundamental Stoic principles. You cannot control other people, only your own judgments and actions. Clinging to what is no longer right for you is not strength. It's fear. And fear has no place in the mind of a free person. Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. That includes opinions. That includes false friendships. That includes environments that erode your spirit. To walk away without drama is not weakness. It's proof that your peace does not depend on anyone else's approval. You have nothing to prove. You are simply done. This applies to relationships, yes, but also to habits, to jobs, to pointless arguments, to toxic habits of thought. The Stoic releases what no longer serves the path. What makes this habit so attractive is its rarity. Most people stay too long. They explain too much. They fight to be seen. But the silently attractive person doesn't perform closure. They live it. When they leave, they don't need to burn bridges. They don't need grand speeches. They don't look over their shoulder. They know their time, their energy, their peace. These are too valuable to waste on convincing the unwilling. In practice, this means trusting your values more than your emotions. Feel the discomfort of letting go, but let go anyway. Feel the fear of being misunderstood, but choose integrity anyway. You don't walk away to punish, you walk away to protect, to preserve the inner order that Stoicism demands. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When a situation becomes a wall, don't scream at it. Step around it. Over time, this habit changes how people see you. They learn. You cannot be guilted, baited, or manipulated into staying where you do not belong. You are not heartless. You are principled. And that kind of self-respect, quiet, firm, unshakable, is one of the most attractive forces on earth. Let's now continue with habit 3. Habit 3, let your actions finish what your words never started. In a world drowning in promises, declarations, and empty self-branding, nothing speaks louder than quiet, consistent action. The Stoic doesn't announce, they execute. To be silently attractive is to let your results speak for you. Not with arrogance, not to impress, but because you know words fade, actions echo. The Stoics were not philosophers of theory. They were doers, builders of inner discipline, practitioners of virtue. Marcus Aurelius, as emperor, didn't need to remind others of his power. His decisions reflected it. Epictetus, born a slave, didn't campaign for respect. His presence commanded it through relentless alignment with principle. This habit is about mastering the inner posture of non-expectation. You don't seek applause. You don't rush to explain yourself. You simply act and allow the consequences of your integrity to speak when needed. In modern life, this is rare. Most people try to appear instead of become. They curate a version of themselves to the world, but lack the substance to back it up. The Stoic reverses this. They reduce noise and increase substance. You say less, but do more. You don't need to remind people how focused you are. Your focus is visible in your outcomes. You don't chase validation for your effort. You take pride in effort itself. This makes you quietly magnetic. Because you aren't seeking approval, you are rooted in direction, and people trust direction. They admire those who are not addicted to being seen, but committed to being true. To build this habit, examine your words. Where do you promise more than you perform? Where do you explain when you should simply act? And then begin the real work. Show up, deliver, repeat, without fanfare. Seneca advised, associate with people who are likely to improve you. But more importantly, be someone whose presence improves others through example, not preaching. When your habits are aligned, when your lifestyle reflects your values, you don't need to argue. You don't need to boast. You don't need to sell your worth. It becomes visible in how you move, how you show up, how you endure. This is how you become silently attractive. Your life becomes your message. Your discipline becomes your voice. Let's move now to habit 2. Habit 2, hold yourself to a standard no one else can see. The world will often give you permission to slack off, to cut corners, to justify the easy path. But the silently attractive person lives by a different law, their own. The Stoics believed that the true judge of a person's character is not what they do when watched, but how they live when no one is watching. This is where silent attraction is born, in the invisible choices, in the private disciplines, in the quiet refusal to lower your standard, even when no one would notice. Epictetus said, "You may be unconquerable if you enter into no combat in which it is not in your power to conquer." What he meant is simple. Never place your self-worth in the hands of others. Let your own standard be the battlefield. One where the only enemy is your own weakness, and the only goal is self-mastery. When you live like this, people feel it. They may not understand why they respect you or why they're drawn to your presence, but they sense something rare. something clean, something quietly powerful. You don't need to show receipts. You don't need to post your grind. You hold the line because it defines you, not because it sells you. This habit manifests in the small things. You read when others scroll. You train when others complain. You speak truth even when it's inconvenient. You hold your values firm even when no one is applauding. This is not about perfection, it's about alignment. The Stoic doesn't pretend to be flawless. They fall. But when they fall, they rise with deeper insight and firmer resolve. Marcus Aurelius kept writing reminders to himself, not because he didn't know what to do, but because he knew how easy it is to forget. That's the Stoic way, a daily return to the standard, a quiet fight every morning to live in accordance with nature and reason. Over time, this consistency carves depth into your presence. You don't have to convince people of your strength. They feel it. You don't have to tell them who you are. They sense it in how you carry yourself, how you listen, how you stay composed under pressure. To practice this habit, define your standard, not the one society gives you, not the one built on ego, the one that aligns with your highest self. Write it down, live it in silence, protect it in solitude, because the most silently attractive people are not chasing the spotlight. They're too busy training in the shadows. Now, we arrive at the final lesson. Habit 1, the most powerful of all. Habit 1, be at peace with being misunderstood. This is the highest form of inner freedom, the rarest form of strength, the ultimate Stoic expression of silent power, the willingness to be misunderstood and not need to correct it. Most people live trapped in a fragile performance. They explain, they defend, they overshare, all to avoid the sting of being misread. But the Stoic knows, truth doesn't need an audience, integrity doesn't beg to be seen, and peace does not require validation. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. What could be more outside of your control than another person's opinion? To be silently attractive is to carry a stillness that says, think what you must. I remain as I am. Not out of defiance, but out of deep, unshakable self-respect. You know your values, you know your motives, you know the depth of your own journey. You do not need to broadcast it. You do not need to be understood to remain whole. And this makes you magnetic. Because people feel when they're in the presence of someone who doesn't flinch under misunderstanding, who isn't performing, who is comfortable with being seen incorrectly, because they're committed to living correctly. This level of peace is not gifted. It is built through discomfort, through rejection, through the repeated choice to return to center every time the world tries to pull you out of yourself. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That's the price of growth. That's the tax on living with principle in a world addicted to perception. When you practice this habit, you move through life with quiet gravity. You don't react to gossip. You don't rush to defend your name. You don't waste energy proving your intentions. You let time and truth do their work. The Stoic accepts that being misunderstood is part of the path, and they make peace with it, because their loyalty is to the inner judge, not the external crowd. To build this habit, start letting go of the need to explain. Say less. Let others assume what they will. Let your actions create distance between you and the noise. Let your calm be your rebuttal. Over time, you'll notice something extraordinary. You no longer fear judgment. You no longer dilute your truth. You no longer chase clarity from those unwilling to understand. You become free. You become rare. You become deeply, quietly, undeniably attractive. This is the ultimate Stoic habit. And this is how silent power is born. There is a kind of strength that doesn't raise its voice, a kind of power that doesn't demand the room, a kind of beauty that doesn't depend on attention. You've just walked through 12 habits that define this strength, habits that, when lived, make you not just more respected, but more centered, not just more admired, but more aligned. And what do they all have in common? Each of them begins from within. This is the lesson of Stoicism, not as an idea, but as a way of being, a practice of integrity, a daily return to your own inner citadel, no matter what the world throws at you. The quietly attractive person doesn't need to perform. They don't need to explain. They don't need to win anyone over. Why? Because they have already won over the most difficult person in the world, themselves. When you cultivate stillness before speaking, when you hold eye contact without seeking dominance, when you guard your time, move with purpose, and walk away without noise, you are living proof of a deeper law. That presence is not about volume. It's about depth. That confidence is not about control. It's about composure. That attraction is not about showing off. It's about showing restraint. At Dairy Stoic, we are not here to teach performance. We are here to remind you of who you already are when you peel away the noise. When you strip away the addiction to attention, the need for validation, the desperation to be seen, what remains is truth. And that truth, when lived, is magnetic. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be clear. You need to be rooted. You need to be free. And freedom begins with self-discipline, with emotional sovereignty, with the unshakable knowledge that what is in your control is enough. Let the world chase the next trend. Let others argue for their image. Let the noise rise. You return to your posture. You return to your breath. You return to your path. When you hold yourself with integrity, you will be misunderstood, and you will walk away anyway. When you speak with weight, others will listen more because you speak less. When you no longer need to be noticed, you will be remembered. So let them wonder why you're so composed. Let them ask why you don't explain yourself. Let them feel the gravity in your presence without knowing what it is. Because you know, you've built it. This is not about becoming someone new. This is about returning to the person you were meant to be, before the noise, before the doubt, before the world told you to speak louder, show more, and move faster. Dairy Stoic is for those who want to move differently, silently, powerfully, aligned with truth. If these habits spoke to you, choose one, live it. Then return, rewatch, reread, reflect. You are not in a rush, you are in training. And as you practice these principles, not for attention, not for praise, but for peace, the world will feel it. Because nothing is more attractive than someone who no longer needs to be. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay grounded, stay clear, stay stoic. Dairy Stoic.